What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning into another episode of Expert Mentors Live 298. Got Mr. Matt Durbin in the house. How are you, brother?
Doing great. 298.
298. Yeah, it is a lot. It is a
How
lot.
many years is that? Is that 1 week for 6 years?
We were super consistent for the longest time, and then kind of just things happening, but trying to stay as consistent as we can. And yeah, I think we started over at EXP in 2017, 2018, 19 timeframe. I think when Whistle and Beer came over. So we really got serious about it and really kicked off the Expert Mentor series, which is just pulling the best out of Honey Badger Nation and just pulling kind of what's working, what we need to be thinking about in today's market, to be able to just pour back into the Honey Badger Nation. So it's good to have you back on and definitely diving into where agents need to be from a production standpoint, for you, running a successful, mega team and keeping everybody focused in the conversations that we're having. So I think it's super important, what we're going to dive into around pricing and really around, the conversation with buyers. And get your take on this too. So when we had Eric at KT with Hoosie talking about what is the number one complaint that buyers and sellers have, right? We know typically it has always been communication. He said, well, it was communication, but what it is now is the buyers and sellers believe they know more than their agent. And I would agree. That's 80% of the agents out there. That is probably true, right? There's still some that do not, but for the majority, I would agree with that. I saw an interesting statistic this morning where it was a poll to buyers and sellers and talking about, do you feel comfortable working just with AI? Do you prefer just working with an agent, or do you prefer working with an agent equipped with AI? The percentage is still about 48% prefer an agent, but that number, almost 26% of just AI is starting to creep up. And I think that's the thing, is that, buyers and sellers are going to be more educated. They have been, but they're going to continue to be more educated and more empowered with AI. Yep. So it's going to be really interesting, the conversations, boots on ground, really articulating your value. And so just kind of curious how, you're thinking about that and positioning as we're getting into, pricing and conversations with buyers and sellers today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the AI is a threat to the industry, right? You think about like when the market was hot, Zillow was trying to go direct to consumer, open door. They were trying to just basically buy those properties, resell them, cut the agent out, make your offer online. And I think there's probably that segment of the market will continue to grow.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, as you get into some of these areas, communities, states, cities that have, subdivision after subdivision that have been built within the last 10 years that are simply, exactly what you're getting. It's a price per square foot. I make the offer. In a lot of markets, they're still as is offers. There's not a big inspection process. There aren't a lot of problems that you're dealing with upon negotiation with inspection, repairs, and things like that. And I think the markets that are like that, where they were probably, I think of like Phoenix was a ton of open door or cash offer and people, them buying your house outright. I think you'll probably have a segment of the market that's going to just go direct if they could.
Yeah.
I think people these days, it's harder to get them on the phone. They don't want to talk to you. They just want to text. They just want, I think there's a segment of the market, especially younger population, that if they never had to actually have a conversation with you and buy a house, they probably would, if they could just push buttons and eliminate any communication. And so I think that's obviously going to be a threat. I think there are markets that are insulated to that. I think we're probably one of them. We have old housing stock. We've got old house problems. It's a small, big city. We have there are relationships where we get deals done that nobody else would get done because of the relationships that we've built, the track record, things like that. You know, we know how to negotiate inspection repairs. And so I think when we're talking through things with buyers, they think it's just, I found the house on the market, so I'm basically doing the job of the agent because I found it on Zillow. It was open the door up for me. And that's all agents do. And I could eliminate them. And that's our fault because we don't articulate our value to them. And so for us on the buy side, going through a menu, like we still use, we've tailored it more to our market. See it like the CHBA, like the home selling advisor. We still use that menu and we go through the 7 steps, and it's everything from how long you're going to be in the house, like looking at an upgrade analysis, initial negotiation, preemptive negotiation. When you start talking about what's going to come up, if it's a government loan, we're prepping for that. We have vendors that can get us quotes. If it's a inspection repair, we save this guy this amount of money. We go through stories. So basically at the end of the day, where they have no question that that we're earning the 3% that we're going to make, or 2.5%, or whatever we negotiate with the buyer. And so being able to articulate the value where you think it's just, the buyer thinks it's just, I found the house, I did the job of the agent.
Yeah, let's go down that path. Let's go down the buyer conversation and kind of where
part of it. Yeah.
Buyers, mindset is right now in today's market, being able to walk them through and really kind of the process of what y'all are seeing and experiencing, but how the conversation needs to go to be able to get them on board so we can move forward. And you're so spot on, right? Are there going to be certain markets that you can get away with, pushing buttons, certain cookie cutter markets? Of course, but not in your market. No way. Right. There's just, it just doesn't happen because there's so many little nuances. And like, even thinking, a certain street over, like, can be completely different, falls into a different school zone, falls into a different county. You got to deal with this. There's just so much little nuances.
Yeah. Like you got 1 out of 4 sewer lines are needing to be replaced. Like, yeah, I mean, and that, again, that's kind of where, I feel like there's probably a little bit more job security for us in that market over time. Right. But most people, they think, well, I got it's like buying a car. I got a pre-approval. They pre-approved me for 60 grand. I can go buy a car for 60 grand. I just go find a car for 60 and I give them the lender's information and it's the rate. But what buyers don't understand is, especially in a market like today, where, and we're not as, our inventory levels are still slightly below where they were pre-COVID levels. So we're not like a Florida where they're way up, right? But buyers are starting to even out where we have the ability to try to negotiate that purchase where we hadn't before. And we still have multiple offers and things like that. And we can kind of talk through that with sellers as well. But from the initial conversation, we want to know, okay, who's the lender? Get a cost sheet. What homes are we looking at? Pick one. I need to see a cost estimate. I need to know numbers. I need to know what you're looking at. I need to know monthly payment. Right?
Are more buyers coming to you that have already talked to a lender than not?
50-50.
50-50. I was really curious because thinking about, like, you see, the moves like Rocket and obviously Zillow and everything. They're trying to get, obviously capture the consumer first, get them into the mortgage first, then being able to kick them out to the agents for the high referral fees. So I was just kind of curious what we're seeing from buyers that come that have already, done some due diligence on the qualification side.
Yeah, it depends where you get them in the process, but yeah, probably about 50% of the time they come with a lender already, which is always, and half the time it's a problem because that lender is non-responsive. They won't give them a cost estimate because they're afraid they're going to shop them. They don't want it. Like they find ways to skirt it. But the conversation that we're having is, I need to know. I'm right now, I'm your real estate advisor. I need to know cash to close. I need to know what your monthly payment needs to be, because if you go look at a house in Upper St. Clair or you look at a house in Peters Township, your taxes are going to be two different things. So the same house price isn't the same house price. I need to know what program you're working with. You know, is it FHA? Is it conventional? Is it conventional 5% down where you're only able to get 3% seller assist? Are you FHA, or are you putting 10% down? Because I'm going to use now, we're using seller assist to structure deals. So like if I've got a buyer, like one of the strategies we've been harping on recently is we have a little bit older housing stock, right? And so we've got homes that are probably a little bit overpriced that need some work. They need a kitchen, or they need floors, or they need painted, whatever the case may be. Like, so we have buyers that are on the fence and they're really hesitant. It doesn't meet all their, but like, if there's a way we could now negotiate this and we could get you 6% back or 3% back, and we can use that towards an upgrade, or we can, like, now we know how to, we can start playing with numbers to structure a deal to actually get it done and get them what they want at the end of the day. Yeah. A lot of times, like, most people just, they think that painting a whole house costs more than it does. They think that floors cost more than they do. Like, they think that these are all major expenses, and they don't buy a house because of the paint color. And it's silly, because like these are things that can all be rectified. Right. So getting a little bit creative with the way that we're working with buyers is the key in a market like this. And in order to do that, we need to know all the financing terms. We need to know how to structure it. We need to know how to make sure we're saving them the most amount of money. Do we not put, do we not use all the seller assist? Do you use that towards the rate buy down? Like, we need to be involved in that process, want to be involved in that process, because if we're not, we're going to not have all of the tools in our tool belt in order to negotiate the best deal for them. Right. The best terms.
Yeah.
So parts there.
So being able to get real clear on that, on the math side of things, and kind of where they want to be. And then from there, it leads into lifestyle conversations. It leads into goal conversations.
Yeah. How long are you going to be there? Do you have money to make updates? Do you have a dad who's a contractor? What do you need move-in ready? Like, what are all those things that we're looking at? Because that's ultimately going to help us determine how we structure a deal, what we look for, what we're going after. If you don't have any of that ability, obviously, like if you're like, hey, I might get a job transfer in 2 years. We can't go buy the nicest house in the best neighborhood, because it's probably not going to be worth much more in a couple of years, given the market we're in, which is probably going to be a little bit more stagnant. So if we're going to go that route, we got to be careful with what we buy. We might have to try to find something that we can put a little sweat equity in, so that when you go to sell it in 2 years, you're still going to make a little bit of money, or at least cover all the costs of both sales, right? Like, so we're looking at that whole scenario. We need to know all of that in order to best advise them. Mm-hmm. And I think most agents just skip through that shit, and it's just like, oh, this house is great. Yeah. And then they try to sell it to you. And then they call them in 2 years and they're upside down and they can't sell it. And now they've been put in a bad situation. So I'm thinking resale upon every purchase. Not that the market changes that right now, but it definitely changes it in a market like this, where we're in a transitional period. We're not 10% appreciation, 15% appreciation every year like we were the last 3-4 years. Like, so we got to be real careful on the buy side and make sure that we're looking out for them. Again, these are the conversations we're having with the buyer, that they know that, okay, this guy knows more than me. He's looking out for me. I'm building trust. I'm building loyalty, right? Like, and if you're not having all these conversations and you're just a door opener, then you're probably not worth the 2.5% or 3% or whatever
it is, right? You're not really taking that advisor role to have, the questions and the thoughts that they're probably not even thinking about. They know it, I'm sure, but they're just not aware enough to be like, oh dang, yeah, we didn't take that into consideration. That they're excited in the shopping phase of it before thinking through getting a little bit further down the field, and then having that buyer's remorse. We can help them really think through everything. And that's such a great point. Just crossing a couple streets and your property taxes double to triple than what it would be And then, obviously you have to factor in, insurance cost as well. So just really help map that out.
For sure. And that comes up a lot right now. We have insurance companies are making us replace roofs at closing. That blows up deals. The tax numbers being reassessed all the time upon transfer. It's triggering a school district to appeal the tax rate. So your taxes are probably going to go up. So we need to look at current assessed value. Like there's a lot that goes on go into the market that we're in, and the people that don't know, and then they get a surprise tax increase of 300% the following March and lose their mind that they didn't know that was coming and they can't afford it. It's a big deal, right?
Yeah, it is. And right now, so important to take all of that into consideration, and sometimes it might slow deals down, but it's important to have, especially these conversations on the front end. Are you like working with the agents to kind of intertwine this through conversation and looking at properties, or is this hey, we need a consultation, we need to sit down, get our game plan, we need a strategy before we even start looking?
You're not always able to get a consultation first, which that's the market now. Everybody wants speed. They just want to go see something. If we can sit them down and go through that, that's the ideal scenario. If we can't, then we're going to meet them and we're going to try to schedule time to at least sit there and have a conversation for 15 minutes in that first house that we have. Or, maybe you have a couple, if it's first showings, maybe we have one or two and you find a vacant that you can have that conversation with. But you got to have that conversation up front as much as you can. And it gets skipped, and when it gets skipped is when you have problems, right? I saw the other day 15% of contracts are being canceled right now.
Yeah, we talked about that, right?
We have a lot of them. Yeah.
And you guys had a lot at the beginning of last year. I remember had a ton of canceled contracts, and then all of a sudden we were good. Are we starting to see more and more of those canceled contracts?
We're still probably 10%, some more than others, but I think a lot of it is it's cold feet, buyer uncertainty, thinking they made the wrong move, probably not talking through everything with them up front. There's a lot of times we're just trying to get a contract so badly that we're pushing and forcing it probably a little bit. And maybe you got to move too quickly, and then they get buyer's remorse. They're sleeping on it. They don't feel good about it. They find a reason to back out. But I think you got a lot of that going on. And I think some of that can be eliminated with having these conversations up front, talking through this whole process. Like
save time.
It's like, all right, let's assume we want to move forward with this. Here's what I see that's probably going to come up upon an inspection, or these are the major things that you're going to have to deal with. So let's try to at least account for them within this offer, right? And then if we have, if we're able to have inspections, which most of them still are in our market right now, then we can go back and we can try to club them over the head again with an inspection negotiation. And then if it's a government financing or something like that, then we might have appraisal things that we can hit them again. So we have a strategy around the direction that we're going, and we're able to talk through, especially like if you've been in enough homes, like what are you dealing with? Like with us, the unknown is sewer lines. Most of our lines need to be camera inspected now by the municipalities. A lot of times that's on the seller anyway, so they're going to have to fix it. If it's not, then we're going to need to make sure the buyers are having those reviewed. Other than that, though, does it have foundation issues? Is the roof old? Furnace AC, like is electrical? Like it's just like most of the stuff we can tell and see and tell them what's going to come up. Are there going to be some unknowns? Yeah, that's why you do inspections. But usually we can prep and build in some of that in the offer already, and then we go back and we try to get more upon inspection, and there's a whole strategy around it. So if the buyer knows that moving forward or up front, then they know the plan, and they're more than they understand it, and they're less likely, I think, to pull out when that inspection comes back and it's got 80 things on it and 3 of them are big.
Right. 100%.
Walk through that process with them.
Yeah. I think it saves so much frustration, and it saves, so much time by sitting down and having this conversation, sooner rather than later is so important on the buy side, because they are excited, but there are things that they just haven't thought about, that we want to really, get the opportunity before we go down the path and just set ourselves up for frustration and failure ultimately.
Yep.
And it could have been, could have been headed off in just a conversation on the front end.
100%. And it's same thing with price, right? So
Yeah.
we had this conversation the other day. Like, we had a buyer that it was listed at $299.9. It went multiple offers. We won the bid at $320. The buyers were considering backing out because they felt like they were overpaying, right? But the conversation is, if that house was listed at $325 or $330, you still would have went and seen it because you're pre-approved up to $350, and now you would be getting it at $320, and you would be thinking you're getting a deal because you're getting $10,000.
Right.
So it's all, the list price doesn't matter. What we're looking at comps, we're determining value. The bank's going to back that up with an appraisal. We got to get off list price. List price doesn't mean anything. Most real estate agents don't know how to list the property. They don't know the pricing. It's a wild ass guess. So we look at the data. Let's have a conversation around what other homes are selling for. What's the situation you're going to be in moving forward? Are we going to do any so now it goes back to that initial conversation. Like, does it check all the boxes? Do we have a plan? Are we going through that? Then yes. And usually when you take them through that conversation, like if it was listed at $330, we would have still went and seen it. And if you would have got it at $320 now,
yeah,
probably would have thought you're getting a deal. But because you're paying over the list price is a made up price.
Yeah, and
agents who aren't very good at pricing.
And I think that's a perfect segue into, talking with sellers. But like, listen, we don't know what the seller's objective and what the seller's goals are, right? There's aspirational pricing, there's market-driven pricing, and then there's a little under to create kind of an event, create some demand.
Right.
Based upon their goals is typically how they're going to price the property and the pricing strategy. And this home very well could have been the strategy of pricing a little below, create some demand to drive the price up, which is what
100%.
happened. So they initially started below market. So here's where we're seeing where the comps. So I think that extra little step to educate the buyers in that situation of like, listen, if I was listing this property, this is where I would have listed it without knowing their goals, their objective, their backstory. But the data is saying it should be priced right in here. Right. So I think it's super, super important. But I think you've got to also understand pricing in the market and paying attention to being a student of it, in which most agents working with buyers don't understand that and how to go about the pricing strategy. So what is the current pricing strategy of how you're working through and looking to evaluate to position and price a home in today's market?
I think there's a process to it, right? So the good news from a seller standpoint is they see the national news. They think things are worse than they probably are, especially in our market. In some markets they are, right? We're still one of the ones that we don't really follow the national trend. So we have a conversation around getting off, like, national news means nothing. Regional news means nothing. West Penn multi-list news means nothing. The only thing that really matters in our market is price point, area, school district, and activity. And so for us, we're going to kind of walk through that process here. We're going to look at comparables, right? Comparables is the rear view mirror look. That is there for us primarily in a market like this to make sure that it'll appraise, right? And we know if we're just totally out of whack, then we may have some issues that we're gonna talk through that with the seller. But the main thing that we're looking at right now is what's active competition, where are they priced at, how do we stack up, what's contingent under contract in our market or pending, whatever your MLS is, right? If there's 3 pendings, that are in this particular price range, how quickly did they move? Where were they priced at? Where are we at? Like if we have a couple that are multiple offer, okay, good. We still have buyers that are competing in this market. We can probably be a little bit more aggressive with this. Or depending upon your scenario, how quickly do we need to have it moved? Do we have a home sale contingency? Like what are all of those things that we're looking at? Because list price, there isn't just a list price, just like we talked about earlier. There's a strategy around it depending upon your particular scenario.
Yeah.
Right. If you want the comfort of a home sale contingency, we're going to move up by, but we're going to have to sell this one. And you don't want this, you want to make sure that you're fully protected. We're going to lose some negotiation power on the purchase, and we're going to have to price it more aggressively if you want to get it done. Right. Like that's the trade-off. Same thing. If I need to sell this in a week, we're going to need to price it more aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little bit more time, we may be able to test the market. And so I think most people come in and they come in with their CMA and it's got a number on it. And I think you shoot yourself in the foot immediately. We don't bring CMAs. We don't have a number in mind. We have a range, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Most listings, people send me the listing. I run comps. I give them my thoughts on where I think it'll probably sell, what list price I might take it at. And if the sellers really want to stretch it, like that scenario, maybe I think this home's worth 285, probably 275, 285 based on where things are going, condition. Ideal list price is 299.9. If that seller's got 325 in their head for some reason because there's some random one, we're going to talk them through all that, all the data, all the comps, and we're going to prep them for price reduction. Like, listen, if we're on the market 2 weeks, we got 2 weekends out of this, we're getting showings, we're going to base it on the feedback, we're going to adjust, but there's a good chance we may have to get under 300 to get into a different price bracket to get this thing moved. So we can try it a little bit higher as long as you have time, but we need to be aggressive with our next move, and we need to plan for that ahead.
Yeah, really. I agree, man. I mean, we know sellers want the most amount of money in their pocket. The determining factor is always timing, right? What is their time frame and the season of the market, right? The timing and kind of what's happening. But I'm with you, and it's all the things that we can do to put it at the top, really depending upon their situation. And I think that's just being really inquisitive and asking some tough questions. That to me is always like, what if this thing doesn't sell, right? Really find that real motivation, because I think right now, if you get that feedback, hey, what happened? What's plan B? What happens if it doesn't sell? And they go, man, I'm good. We don't have to sell. I think right now is a business decision. Do you want to take that listing or not? Because is there a real motivation there? And, digging a little bit deeper on what it is that they're really trying to accomplish. What are they wanting to do before you kind of lock in, like you said, bringing comps with a fixed number in mind, locking yourself in without getting the full story of how to position that home and price it.
Yeah. I mean, motivation is everything with a buyer and a seller. Like getting to that, what's that motivational point? What's the reason they're moving? What's the reason they're buying? Because you're going to have to go back to that and play on that with people who are on the fence from a buyer standpoint. It's the same thing with a seller, right? They might not get the price they want.
Right.
Had in mind, and they probably won't. And good, bad, or ugly, it is what it is. You don't control. Like listings are tough. Like we've been programmed where listings are gold and they sell in 2 days and we don't have to do shit over the last 3 years. Most agents who just come into the market in 2020 or beyond, right? Like that's kind of what we've been dealing with, but they don't remember the days where 2017, 18, where like we're bragging about getting a home sold in 49 days, like where they're sitting on the market 6 months or a year, or like there's like you're having tough conversations, hard conversations around those things, and properly vetting a motivated seller is key to that. And it's also preemptively negotiating price reductions in the way that we have these conversations and set the proper expectations for them that this probably isn't going to move at this price. We're with you. We'll do everything we can. We'll take the shot. But if it doesn't move, what's the backup plan? What's the next move? What's the 2-week move? What's the 4-week move? Because at the end of the day, it's all price and condition. That's the only reason things move. And agents come and they're like, what am I doing wrong? What can we do? Can we run more ads? They want to send letters to the neighborhood. They want to, we had this luxury listing once, and like the owner like wanted us to send letters to all the doctors in the Pittsburgh area because she felt like they could afford it. And it's like, this is insanity. What ended up happening was we beat our head against the wall. Another agent came in, took it. This is like the third one on the market. It was expired. I had it like 2 different times. The next agent ended up murdering them over the head, clubbing them with price reductions until they were $1 million less than where we had it listed, and it finally sold. I bet they didn't send any letters to doctors at hospitals. Like, none of that shit. It's just price. It's price and condition. And that's, and if there aren't enough buyers in the market to demand the price that you're at, you have to get it to a point where it looks like a good enough value to a potential buyer where they want to come and see it and buy it, or we sit there and we wait for however long it's going to take until a buyer that is dumb enough comes into the market and gives you the price that you want, when all the other ones are saying that it's not.
Yeah. It's wild, right? People's, how they get so fixated on beliefs and things in their head. So obviously pricing conversation with sellers and everything, and then the strategy session with buyers. How for you leading other agents, right? Keeping their head where it needs to be in navigating the market conditions. Like what are the agent conversations?
It's kind of the same conversations we're having right now. It's just repetitive, continual conversations around listing price reductions. What do they look like? Like that's what, morning power ups. A lot of that script practice. How are we talking to sellers? How are we setting expectations? What's the pricing strategy that we're talking through with them? How does the listing like DJ has a listing presentation call every Monday. We're going through that process, how to have these conversations with buyers and sellers. And most of the time it's saying like we're just saying, it's a agent on the team. Like, hey, this listing's not selling. I don't know why it's not selling. Can we do marketing? Can we do that? And usually it's always price. But they don't want to have the conversation with the seller because it's a hard conversation and they haven't set proper expectations. And as long as you're doing those things, it's never an easy conversation, but you have to have it.
Yeah. And you have to have it on the front end. So
it makes to have it on the front end.
Yeah.
And so like my favorite line is like, listen, I want to make sure you and I are on the same page. We're on the same team. We're coming up with this strategy together, because the last thing that I want is 30 days or 60 days from now, we're still sitting at this price. You're getting pissed off at me. You're thinking, what am I doing to market to home? And then so you're getting irritated and you're just sitting there watching it every day. And chances are I'm probably getting irritated too. And then you end up hating me and you think I'm not doing anything to sell this home in 60 days. So I want to make sure we're on the same page now, because I don't want us to get to that point. If this doesn't sell, I want to make sure we understand what the next move is, and we're both jiving with that. And we'll talk about that at that point in time. But like, we have to have that conversation up front. And then I generally tell them, like, listen, our job, and obviously we're going through a big listing presentation, but our job is to market it, make sure it's marketed correctly, photographed correctly. We have ads running. We're getting traffic from outside of the MLS. Everybody sees it. It's on Zillow. Like, everybody knows it's there. It's being marketed correctly. The photos are good. You're good with everything. And then we're going to drive showings. And then from those showings, we're either going to get offers or we're going to get feedback. And if we don't have offers and we have feedback, then we're going to look at the feedback. And if we can change anything, then we try to change it. If we can't, then we're probably going to have to adjust price. And then we're going to repeat the process. We're going to remarket it. We're going to do a price reduction. We're going to do open house. We're going to get feedback. And then and it's just a repeating cycle. Yeah. Because ultimately, if we're getting showings and we're getting feedback that there's something wrong with it, then we either have to adjust, we either have to correct it based on the feedback, or we have to correct the price. Yeah. 100%. And then it's repeat. And like, it's not brain surgery, but people get emotional around it. And so this is the process that we're going to take, and we're going to have conversations around it. And then we're going to move or adjust, or we're going to move or adjust. And then I think just having like a plan having a plan in place, what that looks like, what's the time frame. And then if we're listed and we both agree the photos are great, which they usually are, right? And we're marketing it and we're getting eyeballs and people are seeing it on Zillow. We know it's on every website and we're still not getting showings, or we're having limited showings, then we really need to look at pricing, because there's a reason that just people aren't coming out and seeing our home. And typically we're going to look at active inventory. What's on the market? What are people going to see rather than ours? What's went contingent over the last 30 days that's within a 50 grand price bracket of our, like, what's moving? Why aren't we getting showings? How do we stack up? Usually we're priced too high. If it's a nice house and we're not getting a lot of showings, we're not getting a lot of activity, it's generally price. And so we're going to have that conversation at that point in time. And so just prepping them for what's upcoming. And a lot of times we damn well know this thing's going to sit at this price.
Yeah.
Like, you know that going in. If they're like, no, it's this price or nothing, I need to sell, they're motivated, they want to try the higher price, you're spending way more time on expectations.
Yeah, I agree. And then, like I said, in the market, then it becomes a business decision. Do you move forward with it or not? Right. And I think that's where the agents need to understand, if you move forward with that, what's the ripple effect of moving forward with an unrealistic opportunity, an unrealistic client? Might not even be an opportunity, but just an unrealistic individual that doesn't have their goals don't jive to what it is they're trying to accomplish. It's along the lines too. And this is why it's super important, in training and letting the agents know, is like, listen, you need to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. We had Chris DeVecchio did a session at KT in Sarasota for us at the beginning of this year. And Chris is, business athlete and just kind of how to navigate, it's really become lifestyle, right? With your fitness and profession. And Joel asked him a question, said, hey, I kind of have these goals, but here's what's going on in my life, right? Start my own, new company. I got a almost about to be a 1-year-old, wife works virtually. She travels and da-da-da. He's telling the goals. And he said, listen, I'm not saying that you can't do those things, but based upon what you're telling me, like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't jive, right? Your goal of this and this is not possible with your requirements and where this falls as a priority. So you might be better off with this. And I was like, damn, man, like, that's exactly how we have to be with buyers, sellers, and agents. And like, listen, based upon what you're willing to do, the amount of commitment that you're looking to make based upon your goals, that's not saying it's not realistic, but the outcome of that happening is not very good. Right. So you're better off here. And in some situations right now with these folks, it's like, listen, stay put. Right now, your best option is to stay put. Let's evaluate in the spring, and we can kind of see what's changed for you guys, and move on, right? Because you don't want to get hung up trying to deal with that headache that's going to cause you so much frustration that you can't focus on the real opportunities that are passing you by because you're too busy over here messing with unrealistic.
And I think that's the conversation up front. If they're unrealistic seller, they want to list it at a price that's too high and they're motivated, we'll still take it. If they got to sell, they need to move, they got a time crunch, they got a home being built, but they have time, we'll take it. If they're unrealistic with price, they've been on the market twice, they don't want to drop the price, they think it's worth this, they're unmotivated, then we're not going to take it. And it all comes down to motivation again. If it's a motivated seller, we'll take it at whatever price they are, because we're going to set the expectations, and we're going to battle. Sometimes we're going to battle them for price reductions, and they probably are going to get a price they're not pleased with, but that's the price. Like, we know what we're doing is right. Like, that's what we tell everybody all the time, like, especially our agents. Like, we sell more homes than everybody here. We know what we're doing is correct. We know we're looking out for the sellers. We have their best interests in mind. It's going to be marketed correctly. It's going to be followed up on. Showings are going to be followed up on. We're going to get feedback. We can help with we're going to do everything correctly. It's on Zillow. Every buyer in our market that's looking in that price range knows the freaking house is there. Like, there's nothing anybody's going to do differently or better. Like we're checking all of the boxes.
Yeah.
And the only box that hasn't been checked yet is price. And that's really the only thing that's going to move this thing.
Yeah.
And as long as you go into that and you have a motivated seller, it is what it is. It's going to ultimately it'll sell when the home gets priced correctly.
Yeah.
Based on, because that's all it is. What is the buyer seeing that's out there? If I'm going on Auto Trader and there's 5 Ford F-150s on there and 4 of them are priced at 40 grand and one of them is priced at 45 grand, nobody's going to look at the 45 grand one. They're going to start with all the 40 grand ones until they get to that, right? Like that's all people are doing with homes as well.
Yeah. No, it's man, it's so good. It's a great reminder no matter what the market is doing, but in tough markets, you got to have the tough conversations on the front end. Yeah. That's really what it all boils down to. Buyers, sellers, real estate agents. We just need to have a real, transparent, here's the fact conversation on the front end. And then we make a decision. Do we want to proceed from there? And I think that solves so much frustration by having that. And we always say, right? Like you skip that, it's going to come to get you at some point. Skipping steps only presents the illusion of speed. Yep. And you've got to have those real tough conversations on the front end.
Yeah, especially in this market, right? Like this is what we cut our teeth on, right? Expireds and FSBOs in a market that was slow. Mm-hmm. These are the conversations you're having. Like this is where you get to come in and be a pro and give them the good, bad, and the ugly, and be an advisor, and not be totally outcome oriented, where you'll just tell them whatever they want to hear so that you get the listing, and then they end up hating your guts in 30 days, right? Like you need to come in and be the pro and tell them what they need to hear and have a plan and have a strategy and know that the pricing is good or bad. And if it's not good, are they still motivated? Are we going to be able to preemptively set up pricing drops or whatever adjustments? Like this is where you can be the pro in a market like this, where there's inventory and you can stack inventory. And as long as you stay in touch, and that's the other thing too, like you got to be in communication with listings, especially if they're sitting. Every Monday, there's got to be a check-in, whether it's good, bad, ugly. They got to know you're there. They got to be following up. They make sure you're getting feedback, because every showing, then once you're on the market a little while, they are, the second that showing is over, they're looking for feedback. They're all
immediately.
Over.
They want to see it immediately.
That's all they care about, because this is their house, this is their baby, this is their $600,000 check, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be working that. You need to be in communication with those things. And as long as you are and you're working it and you stay in touch with them and they know that you're working hard and they know that you're doing things, they'll stay with you. Mm-hmm. If you don't follow up and you don't communicate and you don't stay in touch, then they think you're just another shithead agent, and they fire you, and then they go to somebody who's willing to come in and do the hard things, and then they get it sold. They get it priced correctly and it sells. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Brother, I appreciate you. So spot on. And it's about having those conversations that need to be had on the front end, and be a pro. I mean, that's really it, man. Just be a pro.
That's it.
Cool. Brother, appreciate you. Guys, thank you. Man. We'll see you next time. See you.